All right. All right. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. And it, someone said, what is the reason that you created this? And I think it's a pretty obvious question. But when I was director of HR, and I've been in business doing leadership training and development for 12 years now, coming this March, I'm super excited. This is the stuff that makes us not want to go to work on Mondays. And I thought I would put something together for people to come to, let them know that honestly, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And when we have options and folks to talk to about this, then you can kind of learn that you're not the only one that's dealing with this. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Um, I always talk about there's one course that I teach a lot and do group trainings for, and it's learning personalities in the workplace. And I have to tell you, it's one of the most interactive ones that I have. But what in that course, we talk a lot about things like this. The workplace relationships are a two-way street. Absolutely 100%. It's not only on the leaders, but it's on everybody. We want the teams to collaborate, get along. Wouldn't that be lovely, right? But we want to have mutual respect, open communication. And now, please know, I hear all the eye rolls, knowing that, yeah, that would be wonderful, wouldn't it, Kim? But we can get there with just getting those reminders from good leadership, leading by example from leadership, and reminding the team what it means, and that collaboration and teamwork. I have to tell you, I when I loved who I worked with and for, I barely remember the work that I did. It was just, I didn't mind going to work. I really enjoyed the people. I worked well with them together. We did great work. We met the deadlines. Those deliverables weren't hard. And on the opposite side of that, if I didn't like who I worked with or for, we had a lot of different personalities. They clashed. It really made me not like Mondays. There was no loving Mondays. And that's my tagline. You got to love Mondays because, I want to make, Monday the new Friday, as they say. With empathy and understanding, this can go really well. Conflict resolution, and conflict can simply mean just a little tiny thing to maybe even something that's really egregious. Conflict is conflict, and if it's not addressed, it kind of gets layered and it gets a little too thick and it becomes a problem. And for my HR people, I have a soft spot in my heart for. Let's kind of mitigate that as much as possible and get ahead of it. You have that support and engagement. You got that balance, that give and take. How amazing is that? And with mitigating that workplace drama, we can get all this. You get a lot of personal and professional development and learning how to set boundaries, and that continuous improvement becomes something you look forward to. You really do. And I saw this quote by Cy Wakeman, and I wanted to add to it. It's pretty much, again, I'm going to say it often. Drama creates mentally wasteful thought processes or unproductive behavior. You have an issue at work, you go home, you tell your loved ones, your friends, you spend so much time angsting over this one person or situation or boss or organization as a whole. And it's so draining and it takes a toll emotionally and physically. So let's get on to some of this stuff. And honestly, sadly, these are just some of them. You have a lot of dissension, personality differences. Remember, I kind of talked about that just a minute ago. I spend a lot of time training different communication personality styles because this can really take care of a lot of the check mark a lot of these things. You have that victim mentality. How many people, go ahead and put it in the chat, that you have any one of these happening with your team or colleagues or senior leadership. You have one of those things where honestly, it's something you just want to say, can you just get over yourself and just come to work, please? Please. But all of these things create workplace drama. And I'm going to put a little bit of a comedic spin on this, but I want you to know that this is something that is an absolute serious issue. We don't want to spend 40 years of our lives going to work and hating our jobs just to get to either that Friday, the weekend, that vacation, or retirement. We're not guaranteed any health or wealth in our retirement. So why don't we do it now? And that's why I do what I do. I'm on a mission. I don't know, just call me crazy, but let's not spend the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years to get through it just to get to retirement. Life's too short. I think we all don't have to be convinced of that. So let's do something a little silly with this. I'm going to talk a few things about the different personalities and sort of how to handle it, but in a very fast-paced mode. So I always put poor Charlie, Chatterbox Charlie, and I was dealing with an issue with one of my clients just last Friday, and to be honest with you, it was one of those things where they were like, "Look, it's not a bad thing. It is, but it isn't." What I wanted to kind of ask you, Kim, was how do you talk to an over talker so that they are not interfering with someone's workday? And so I said, well, funny enough, I have training that I do on personalities, and we have a one character called Chatterbox Charlie, and I worked with one as well. Couldn't be a nicer guy.
Charlie.
Yes. Chatter. So it's like, okay, God, for the love of God, Charlie, I just said good morning, and you're going on and on. Oftentimes we don't really know where people are in their personal life, and it's not. We always say leave it at the door when you come to work, but that's a pie in the sky thought. So Charlie is going to look for any opportunity to hold on to you and have that conversation. So if it becomes an issue, talking about ones or twosies here, if it becomes an egregious issue, you have a situation where you go, Charlie, you know what? Hey, listen, I would love to continue this conversation, but right now I have a deliverable and a deadline I got to get to, or else I'm not going to get to it. But let's go ahead and put some time aside for that. And someone might say, well, Kim, I don't want to put aside time for that. Most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, Charlie's not going to really come up to you and say, hey, by the way, we had that appointment so I could continue complaining about my wife or my dog or my kids or whatever. It's just to get them to stop in the moment, because the longer you let them go on, they're going to single you out in a good way because you're giving them an ear and a heart that they're going to need that. They are in a need position and they're going to get it from whatever they can. So there are very kind ways of saying, hey, listen, Charlie, I would love to continue this with you if that's okay. Let's but I got to get back to getting that report out. But hold on to that thought and we'll get back to it. And like I said, 9 out of 10 times they might. Chances are you might come back. You might come back, but then you can give them 5 more minutes and just say, hey, listen, we've got 10 minutes on this. Let's go ahead and talk. And I know that sounds a little mean, but at least it gets him in the mindset of, oh, I've got to hurry through the story. Okay. So trust me on this. And I go into it deeper with trainings, but for the sake of time, we're going to talk just about a few of these. We have the bully in the office. And I picked on Barbara because it just happens to be bully Barbara. But oftentimes people say this is the boss and it's a problem. But there is also that toxic Tina in the bully Barbara. The toxic Tina is that bully workplace colleague that has been there since inception, knows everything supposedly, and sort of sabotages people that they don't like. It's not right. It has to be dealt with directly. Most people fear the conversation, so they don't have the conversation. I was working with one of my clients just actually yesterday, and they had that situation where I said, you need to go right to this and have this conversation with the person's name. Let's call her Sally. And she said, okay, I don't know how to have this conversation. And I'm afraid that I don't want to get us into a litigious situation. And I said, well, first of all, and we're going to get into a couple of things that you can do about workplace drama. But I gave her many, many tips that she can do, but in having that conversation with that bully in the office, because if you don't take care of it, it will create a cancer in the culture and you're going to lose good people. So when I was in HR, the one thing I hated the most was replacing good people. So don't let that happen. And if you have someone like that, hold on to that question. We'll talk about it at the end. Okay. So let's talk about the cost. Leaders spend up to almost half their time dealing with conflict and drama. Now, I know that seems like a lot and a big number, but it's real. Each employee can spend on average 5 hours per week. And I was very on the low end of this. It can go up to 12 hours a week. Think about the person at the water cooler, like, hey, did you hear Kim? She was going on and on and on. And then they involved other people because they're looking for that captive audience because they're not happy and they want to, make the organization pay. And I'm going to be fair to the employees in a moment on how to mitigate workplace drama. But for this slide, know that there is a high cost that does not show on your P&L. So know that there is a cost there and don't ignore it because it isn't a line item in the cost when you go to your the CFO and say, hey, listen, we got to take care of this. We got to bring in some help with this leadership training because this is what's costing us. And it's really about kind of tracking the hours and the time. And I think those of us in HR, if we had to track the hours, we'd be there all day. So if that's happening, let's have a conversation. Now, the other cost is stress and anxiety. People call out all the time. They don't want to be there. They get those 8 hours and they're going to call out. They're not going to use their PTO strategically. Okay. So the lack of strategic PTO absolutely puts stress on the team because someone has to do the job. Someone else has to answer those phones. Someone else has to create that deliverable deadline and make it, right? Presenteeism and absenteeism. I have a question and I want you guys to put it in the chat if you wouldn't mind. What is more expensive, presenteeism or absenteeism? And presenteeism, for those who don't know what it is, I don't want to, just in case, it's when people come to work and they don't do the job. Okay. Absenteeism, obviously. Amber, yes, it is presenteeism. Thank you. And I know that probably seemed like a pretty obvious question. But when you're paying someone to be there and they are not, definitely Lisa, thank you, and they're not doing the job, it causes more stress. And I always tell people, listen, if you're not making the deadlines, the deliverables aren't being met, let me ask you this. What is your PTO policy? And they go, oh, that's being abused all the time. Those are red flags for me to have a little deeper conversation. Poor productivity obviously comes with that. But more important, legal issues. Do you know that I often get calls from, the employment lawyers that say, hey, Kim, you know what, you probably should go talk to so-and-so company. Not that I don't want the business, but I really like the owner and they just need some help. And I think that would help them with the cost of all these legal issues. Because employees, even if they're wrong, and again, it's a two-way street, I got to be honest, even if the employee is the one that's causing the issues, it can still cost the company a lot of money because you can't really replace the person until they're fully let go, or if you let them go and you don't have enough documentation or what have you, you're looking at a litigious situation. So there are a lot of preventative measures that I'm talking about here. Unnecessary turnover. And the biggest thing with this checkpoint, I got to be honest, is guess who you're losing? You're losing the good people. I did a lot of recruiting and HR, and it was always very frustrating to me that we were losing the good people. And that's what caused me to get the partners to really sign on with leadership training, because I was tired of losing the good people. It would upset me so much. And they said, sorry, Kim, but I just can't, nothing's changing here. I can't do it. And that was my responsibility too, and accountability from me. Okay. And the ever increasing health insurance premiums, because when you have a sick culture, the premiums go up. It's kind of like your insurance is good, just don't use it, right? That was always my most dreaded meeting every year, which was enrollment, because it never didn't go up. So let's pay attention to that, please, please. So I gotta say, I jokingly said when I was in HR for over a decade, might as well take the door off my office and put a revolving door on there, because the complaints were never ending. They would come in even about the same one, the same person, same issue. And I was done. I was done with the constant complaints. I wanted to have some resolutions. And so let's go ahead and make sure that we're getting rid of that need for the revolving door. So I'm going to be a little bit of tough love here. What can you do about it? It has to start with you. So I always say remove the ego and self-reflect at all times. If you're a leader or an HR, you got to be open to receiving that feedback. And I know HR folks do. You got to listen to all sides. Most leaders are like, look, I told them what they had to do. They didn't do it. I want them out of here. Well, that's not that easy. It's not that easy. Most leaders dealing with the issues, sometimes it's the owner of the company. It's a small organization and they just get so frustrated. They get very defensive because they want it their way, but the employees kind of pushing back. And then it gets into, I know you are, but what am I fight? And this is not the way to get to a resolution. You've got to look at what is the common denominator. So what I'm saying here is it a team member? Is it that toxic talent? Is it a leader? Is it someone in a leadership role, in a senior leadership role, which can get really sticky, right? Or is it a policy that's not in place? Is it a procedure? Do you need your procedures to be to be created, to be lined up. Those SOPs are so important. Those standard operating procedures, if they're not in place, that can create a lot of frustration within the team, and then it creates frustration with the leader. And by the way, if you need SOPs, I have an amazing person for you that will make sure that they're all there and everybody knows what they need to do. And hopefully that takes care of the behavior behind not knowing what to do. So what do we do? These are just a couple of things, but I want you to pay attention to, we're going to talk about the ultimate question. And that one is going to be the toughest one because the feedback on that one can be tough. But before we get there, how well do your leaders know their team members? Now, do they know what makes them tick? I'm not asking them to get into intimate details about their life, but do they know what makes them tick? Do they, I don't know. I mean, I love my dog. I like to do dog training with her. I mean, it sounds silly, but if my boss was like, hey, how's Moxie doing with her training? I mean, it just makes me feel like I was heard. I know it seems this is low hanging fruit, people, right? You got to set the proper expectations. I can't tell you how many times leaders are not having one-on-one meetings with their team members. Now, that doesn't mean it has to happen every week, but it does mean it has to happen. So people say, I don't have time for that, Kim, but this is crazy. I have too many people. And my response to them is, you can't afford not to meet with them. You've got to meet with them, not only individually, but in a group fashion. You've got to have those group meetings. You've got to meet with them individually, whether it's once every month or once every other month. You've got to meet with your team members. You have to control your emotions. Remember, I mentioned that a little bit earlier, because you can't get overly excited when someone's bringing something to you, because not everybody knows how to articulate their issue without getting upset. But it is the responsibility of the leader to control your emotions. And while you're doing that, you're intentionally listening. Now, when I say that, people say, what do you, I mean, I hear what they're saying. It's not about hearing them. It's intentionally listening to every word, whether or not it's emotional or not. Unless you're trying to harm you, then you need to sit there and let them have a conversation, because you're going to learn more by listening than talking. You don't have to agree with it, but you do have to listen intentionally without an agenda of what you're going to say at the end of the conversation. Just take in what they're saying. And having that consistent communication is going to allow you to be there for your team, which is what leadership is all about. Now, it doesn't mean the team can't be there for you, but you're in a leadership role. You need to be there for your team. They're not there to delegate what you tell them to do. They're there to help get the goals attained for the organization with your tutelage and leadership. Now, if you think you're having issues, or if you don't think you're having issues, I always say, ask the ultimate question. So what is the ultimate question? And you can write this down, or I'm going to send you this copy anyway, or you can ask me about it at the end. The ultimate question is this, and I can't tell you how many responses I get with this. And sometimes they're articulate and sometimes they're not, but at least you're getting an answer. The question is this: how excited are you to go to work on Monday morning? One being, kind of sick to my stomach on Sunday nights, to be honest with you. 10 being, I'm super excited. I love my job. I could even be doing backflips to go to work, right? I know it's a little extreme, but stick with me on that. 10 is, I am at a 10, truly. I love what I do, and I'm so blessed to be able to do it. Now, they write down the number, anywhere from 1 to 10, 2, a 3, a 6, whatever the case may be. Now, the next question I ask them is, if it wasn't a 9 or a 10, what would it take to get what you put down to a 9 or a 10? And that's the magic feedback that you're going to get. And you have to let them know any answer is okay. Again, some people may not have the ability to be articulate or professional, but at least they're giving you an answer, and you can do it anonymously. It doesn't matter who wrote it. And sometimes people go, well, I know who wrote that because I know. No, it's not about that. It's about getting the feedback. And once you do, okay, once you do, you're going to get the feedback that you need, whether you like to hear it or not. So at this point, I want to ask, are there any questions about what we've talked about so far? Please go off mute, ask any questions now with like what I've talked about. And did anything feel a little wasn't comfortable with that? Or if you've tried something that really worked, and share with the team here. Anybody, or you can put it in chat if you want. Okay, we have some shy folks out there. I'm going to hope that you stay at the end because I know there's always questions. Okay, let me ask you this. What would it mean to you if you could get ahead of the employee issues? And I mean, just answer these in your own head. What if you were able to create trusted leaders that people don't want to leave? Get the job that I had when I was like, I loved my boss. I loved my team. I couldn't have imagined leaving. I loved it. I had great friends. What if you had a culture like that? What if you had an effective and affordable option that you didn't have to keep getting that revolving door situation going? Because they often say, it falls on the shoulders of the HR. And I go, well, maybe, but they are that central information, that collection of data, as you will. But you don't always have the bandwidth to teach the folks what they need to learn. HR needs a break. You want to be there for creating policies that will grow the company, not keep fighting fires. What if you had leaders that had, knew that support with the what, the when, and how to handle issues in a forum or in the moment? They were like, I got to have this conversation. I don't know what to say. I don't know what I'm afraid of what they're going to say. Just kind of have that role play, have someone to talk to about that so that they can go through it and feel really confident so they can go in and have those conversations without avoiding it and having it being even a bigger issue. And what if you had someone that was partnered with you as a leader or an HR to make sure that you did achieve your culture and leadership goals? Because I know that I was so blessed to have some people come in that I trusted and had an amazing time with. So I have a question here. What if my leader is a narcissist? Well, if that gets I'm going to stop. Thank you, Nicole, for asking that question. So when you have a narcissist that is, let me see, I'll use this as an example, is they might just be, they humiliate you in front of, maybe the conference that you're having. Maybe they're just not very nice in an email. They expect, but don't tell you what the expectations are. All those things. If you haven't done this, I recommend that you do. First of all, narcissists are hard to overcome, and it is a work in progress. And it also, I want to make sure that you inject what is your tolerance and how much can you take? Because some people say, it's never going to change. I can't do this. And I say, okay, well, let's talk about this. Let's go through the scenario. And here's the question. You go in, say your boss's name is Rich. Okay. You go in and you say, hey, Rich, I got a question for you. Do you have a second? And they're probably going to say, yes. What do you need? And you say, what just happened in there? What was it that I do that caused you to treat me that way? You don't want to give someone a heads up and say, well, I want to have a meeting on what happened yesterday and discuss why, it is that you treat. No. Oftentimes with narcissists, they're dealing with their own insecurities and then they project onto everybody else. And I know that's not fair, but I mean, I always tell people buckle up because there's a ton of people out there like that. But when you approach someone unprepared and you ask them, what is it that I'm doing to cause you to treat me that way? You're going to get whatever answer it is, but you're getting an answer that they don't prepare. And they might go, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, well, next time I'd like you to be a little bit more cognizant of that because I'm not sure if you meant that to be helpful or hurtful, but that wasn't productive. And I'd appreciate if you wouldn't do that again. It doesn't guarantee that they're not going to do it again because narcissists are tough to rehab. I got to be honest, but don't just take it. You do have to handle it. And oftentimes narcissists will make you step outside that comfort zone by having to approach someone, which stinks. I don't like conflict either, but I certainly do lean into it more now because I've had to. And I will say 9 out of 10 times, it does result, if nothing, even if it's for a little bit of time, they know that you're not someone that's going to put up with that type of behavior. And they may direct it to somebody else, and then you can teach them how to handle that. So with a boss that's a narcissist, you can go to HR, get some support from that, a colleague and get some support from that. And in the worst case scenario, you go to an employment lawyer, but let's hope that it doesn't get to that point. Okay. So getting back to, I hope that was helpful. And if you still want to kind of expand on that, hang out and we can do that. And so if you had someone to help with all this, I have a special announcement to make. So what does that mean? I'm offering a course. It's a 3, 6, or 12-month course, choice by the person, to learn all of the things that will create a situation where you do not have workplace drama. Now, is it possible not to have any? Maybe not. But you can knock it down 80 to 90% by teaching your leaders how to have emotional intelligence, knowing the personalities, how to deal with conflict and difficult conversations. How many times do we put off doing the performance evaluations because we don't want to tell them that they have to do better? How to teach someone true accountability. This isn't as easy as it sounds, by the way. How to teach someone what do all your leaders know how to critically think? Do they have good time management? Do they know how to strategically plan? All of these things cause workplace drama if they're not if they're not implemented within the organization. Performance evaluation and management, I know it always comes across as like this big, huge elephant in the room. And you can teach your leaders how to intentionally hire. So the HR, it's not all on the HR role. It's just not. This is where HR doesn't have to be that, forgive me, but the dumping ground in most organizations. So if this is something that you're interested in, it's going to be an amazing opportunity for people to come in with 2 live sessions with takeaways every single month, depending on the topic. They're small cohorts so that I have maximized attention for everybody. There's an interactive roundtable. There are tools to implement immediately, but most importantly, the follow-through support from me, where the transformation really happens, where it's outside of the learning environment and in the moment. They call up and say, hey, Kim, I got that meeting tomorrow. Can we just do a 10-minute boost? I got to go over it with you. I just wanted to make sure I'm good. And that you're getting all of this within, and you can do like I said, 3, 6, or 12-month course. And if you sign up, if you want to reach out to me and get some more information, and you decide to sign up by March 7th, you're going to get a 25% discount. I want to make this as affordable as possible. And it is. It's an incredible opportunity so that you don't have to deal with this leadership stuff all the time. Stop getting into a situation where you're in a PIP, a performance improvement plan, and get ahead of it by having them come to these classes. I will keep them accountable with the goals that you're trying to achieve with them, and they will learn stuff that they will keep for the rest of their career, and they get to take it home and learn it with their family and friends as well. So I implore you to please go ahead and contact me. You can email me. You can scan the QR code and book some time with me. Please feel free to do that. And not a hard sell. If you're not interested, that's fine, but at least learn about it and let me know if, what it is that you're dealing with, and we can talk and see if it's a fit or not. So I want to thank everybody for being here. And what I want to do is I want to come off share and ask folks to please, what questions do you have? What are you currently going through with challenges that might be